Chai Tuesday. I've got a big announcement. A huge announcement. Monstrous announcement. I want to talk about the AFC Asian Cup bid that was announced last week by India. You're disappointed, aren't you? You're disappointed. You're disappointed that that's my big announcement. That I just want to talk about the Indian bid for the AFC Asian Cup. That's how I felt when for days and weeks the Indian FA had teased us with all these social media posts for the big announcement that came last week that ended up being, we're bidding for the Asian Cup. Yeah, you know what? My big announcement is I'm thinking about training to become an astronaut. Anyway, let's focus on the Asian Cup. The reason I'm wearing gloves is because I'm in sunny Barcelona. The sun's just going down, but it is chilly, so that's why the gloves this week, and I'm all wrapped up and warm. And if you're wondering what this is I went to put some honey in my my tea, my chai, and it dropped in, so I just left it in. It's called the budgie school of putting honey in your tea. So anyway, Chai Tuesday. So the AFC Asian Cup. So India last week announced that they were going to bid for the Asian Cup, and there's 5 bids going in for the Asian Cup in 2027. So there is India, of course, Saudi Arabia, and under His Highness Mohammed bin Salman, they're doing a lot to promote sport in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to hold sporting events. We've had World Championship boxing there already, Formula E. So Saudi Arabia is going to be a tough competitor. Qatar, who come 2027 will have already hosted the FIFA World Cup, so everything will be in place in terms of infrastructure, stadiums, etc. Who else is there? Iran, not going to happen. Uzbekistan is the other one. So what's that? India, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Uzbekistan. So that's the 5. So the Asian Cup in 2023, the next one, is in China, which is great. The last one was in the United Arab Emirates. It was won by Qatar. I went to see all 3 of India's games. They should have, in my opinion, have made it through to the knockout stages. They were good enough to make it through to the knockout stages, but instead got beaten by Bahrain in the last game, and that didn't happen. So what India already has done is they have hosted the FIFA Under-17 World Cup, the female Under-17 World Cup, the women's Under-17 World Cup, FIFA World Cup, was due to be held in India this year, but because of COVID, that's been postponed to 2022. The AFC Women's Asian Cup, try to remember all these, will also be held in India in 2022, so they'll get a bit of experience at hosting there. So these things are all important, and it's good. So I want to tell you about the criteria. So there are many things that make up the criteria to host a tournament, whether it be FIFA or the Asian Football Confederation, the AFC. Now, stadia, obviously, is number 1. You have to have stadia that's up to scratch. It has to have a minimum capacity. It has to not be crumbling and decaying, which you could obviously expect. It has to have facilities not only for the teams, but for the fans. It has to have certain levels of access, whether it be public transport, etc. The pitches have to be up to a certain grade and standard. So there's the stadia. There's also infrastructure around it. So like I mentioned, public transport, not just at and around the stadium, but in the cities that are hosting. So that's another criteria. The training facilities, where the teams are located, and the training pitches that they use, and I'll come back to that in a second. And the other thing is accommodation as well. There needs to be certain amounts and levels of accommodation. Now, before I come back to the training pitches, I just want to tell you quickly about Qatar. Now, we all know that Qatar bought the 2022 World Cup. They will have no problem hosting that, except for one small detail, which they are currently floundering on. Stadiums are fine, pitches are fine, training facilities are fine, infrastructure is good, no doubt about that. However, they are short on one aspect, which is currently causing a problem, and I'm not sure whether it'll be fixed for the World Cup, and that is 3-star accommodation. Now, you may think that's weird and bizarre, and it kind of is. But here's the problem. There are a whole range of football fans coming from around the globe for the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. They're not all wealthy and rich, which means they can't all afford 5-star accommodation. Now, anyone of you who is watching this that's been to Qatar or Doha know that their hotels are fabulous. They have a number of 5-star hotels, they have a number of 4-star hotels that, by the way, if they were in England, they would be 6- and 7-star hotels. If they were in India, they would be 6- and 7- and 8-star hotels. What they lack is an abundance of 3-star accommodation. Cheap accommodation for fans that are coming from the other side of the globe and can't afford to stay in a 5-star hotel. They can't afford to stay in the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons or the Hilton or wherever, whatever one you want to pick. That's going to be a problem. Now, that's good. Black tea. Or English breakfast, as some people call it, but here in Spain they call it black tea. Now, coming back to India's bid. So I think India fulfill all the criteria. There's one area where I think they're short, because there's no doubt that the stadiums are a level above, especially since the advent of the Indian Super League. There's still a few of them will not meet the criteria of the AFC, but they've got 7 years to improve that. The pitches are pretty good. Hotel accommodation, no problem whatsoever in India. Something to fit everyone's budget. Infrastructure, I think it's pretty good. The problem is training facilities. There is a shortage of quality football training pitches in India. And it's one thing that, even though it's improved a little bit, it still hasn't improved to the level that's expected for the world game, for the likes of FIFA, for the likes of the AFC. The training facilities, when you go to Europe, if you look at the last World Cup in Russia, the training pitches and the training facilities are the same as the stadiums. They're fabulous, they're immaculate, they're the highest level you can get in world football. Now, every day throughout the tournament, teams, sometimes they're shared, the training facilities, most often they're not. They will be training on those pitches every single day, so there's wear and tear, which means you can't just have one pitch. You need a number of pitches so they can train here today. The pitch, the grass can get a rest. They move on to this piece of turf, this pitch, the next day, and there's a rotation. So one piece of grass is not being used continuously throughout the tournament, and that's their biggest weakness. That's the weakness where I think the game will need to be raised. The levels and standards required for under-17 tournaments won't be the same for the senior men's competition when it comes to either the AFC or the World Cup. So, and I've got one other question when it comes to the bid. And by the way, it's a good thing going for these bids. But when England bid for the World Cup in 2018, the one that they didn't get, because Sepp Blatter and his pals in Qatar already knew who was going to get the World Cup, both in 2022 and in 2018, Sepp Blatter's Russian pals and Qatari pals. England spent £12 million sterling on that bid. Now, a bid has a cost. I have no doubt that India's bid for the 2027 Asian Cup, the AFC Cup, will not cost £12 million. Of course it won't. But it will cost, I would say, probably into the millions of dollars. Because there's a presentation has to be put together, assessors will come, there'll be a whole load of discussions, and it's all very professionally put together, but it will be expensive. So my question is this: should or could that money be spent, or some of it, not all of it, but could or should that money be spent better elsewhere? That's my question. Could it be spent on grassroots? Could it be spent, and this is my own little bugbear, could it be spent on making the lives of the Indian national team just a little bit better? And what I mean by that is, we all know what happened when India went to play Jordan, was it? Half the team went on one flight, and they were just standard booked tickets. They were just like probably the cheapest tickets that could get off the internet on any particular day. And half the team went on another flight, and this team got trapped in Qatar, I think it was, for 24 hours. They were sleeping on the floor of the airport, and then half the team already got there, and when that half of the national team squad got to Jordan, they arrived literally 2 or 3 hours before the game. I mean, come on. You're trying to give the national team your pride and joy, the Blue Tigers, you're trying to give them the best chance of every single game in every single competition that they enter. Why not just book a charter flight direct from India to Jordan? Guam, when India went to play Guam, they went round the planet to get to Guam. Round the planet to get to Guam. Yeah, because they had to take standard flights instead of chartering a flight. I don't understand that. So, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked with a little rant here. But you understand what I'm saying. Could that money have been spent better elsewhere? So, after all of those days and weeks of being teased about the big announcement, do you feel just as disappointed as I am that the big announcement, the huge announcement, my big announcement, is not quite as big as you thought it was? Chai Tuesday.